Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the lead singer for Lipstick Generation.
And I'm Steve. I'm the Geddy Lee of Lipstick Generation.
And that he is the bassist who is very talented and Canadian. Today on the Lipstick panel, we had a bunch of guests gathered together for an episode that you will probably hear in like 3 months because of our ridiculously huge backlog. But
if you came here for Kiss, too bad.
But basically, everyone on this panel that we have today are Rush fans, and with the news of Neil Peart's passing, we had to say something about it, given how big of an impact he left on the music industry, us as musicians, and we wanted to, it was too big to not talk about. For those who are unaware, Neil Peart passed on Tuesday. And it's been a really rough start to the new decade with the story of Janie Lane's rape resurfacing in the news, and then Neil Peart. So this decade's off to a little bit of a rough start.
It's like 2016 all over again.
Yeah, so it's some sad news, but Neil Peart left behind an amazing legacy as a lyricist, as a drummer. And as a champ,
Randroid who figured it out later on.
It's not even been a week yet, dude. But
I respect that he recognized that he was wrong about Ayn Rand being good and changed his mind.
But what I really want to emphasize is his strength and endurance of the human spirit. Him overcoming the tragedies of life, coming through darkness on the other side is just a really inspirational, powerful story, which he shared in his excellent book Ghost Rider, and then lyrically throughout the last few Rush albums. So phenomenal musician. We've got Jamie Donnelly on the program. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'd say I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not really looking forward to this segment because it is really sad news, isn't it?
Yep.
About Neil Peart. Yeah, do you want me to do how I know about Neil Peart, or are we saving that for?
I'm gonna introduce everyone, and then we'll just go around and let everyone sort of say their piece, because I think that's mainly just, it'll probably be a shorter episode. Just everyone talks about the impact that Rush had on them. We'll go person by person, open it up to a group discussion, and then sort of close out. So we've got Jamie on the program from the excellent band Be Quiet, Shout Loud. Speaking of excellent bands, Gavin Wallace Aylesworth, phenomenal drummer. Obviously has to respect Neil Peart on the program. Welcome, Gavin.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We've got Julian Gill from Kiss FAQ joining us back on the show. Beloved member of the Lipstick panel. We love having him on every episode that we do. So thank you so much for being here with us, Julian.
Thank you for your continuous tolerance of me.
And later in the episode, we record another podcast earlier today with Lee McCormick. We're going to put his comments at the end of the episode because he had some nice things to say about Neil as well. Being a drummer, being from Canada, obviously there's the respect and love there. But I just want to go around the panel, talk about everyone's history with Rush, Neil's drumming. What the impact of his music and legacy left on you as a person. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead, start with Jamie, then we'll go to Gavin, then we'll go to Julian, then we'll go to Steve, and we'll close out with myself.
Cool. Like almost everything musically related, I got into Rush via Kiss, which I know that sounds like a really strange segue for most, but through playing in bands, kind of the first, actually no, the second band I was ever really in, we had still the greatest drummer that I've probably ever played with, and I was quite naive and I assumed that I can't even think of who I assumed was the greatest drummer I'd ever heard, but it was somebody that wasn't. And the drummer in the band was just like, no. You've got to check out this band. You've got to check out Rush. And I was just like, Rush. I'd heard them before, and I'd heard rumors on the internet of what prog was and the kinds of people that listened to prog, and stayed the heck away, because that's what you do, don't you? You read on an internet forum to ignore everything, and you just let your ignorance go. And anyway, he took me under his progressive wing and showed me that there were other musical forms other than 4/4. And he introduced me to Permanent Waves, and I listened to that, and I'd never heard anything like it before. The fact that the entire band were pushing and pulling all the time, the lyrical themes, but at the heart of all of it was just this groove that sounded like three drummers playing at once. And it absolutely blew me away. Kind of as I listened more and got into it more, my friend, the first person I thought of when I heard the sad news the other day, and I texted him to make sure he was okay. He kind of started telling me all about Neil Peart's life as well, and kind of the tragedies with his wife and his child. And it just seemed that kind of throughout this, what seemed like a harrowing life, full of misfortune, he managed to just keep going through the power of his drumming and through the power of music and through the power of, rock and roll, as cliche as it sounds. And I think there's a lot to kind of be learned, from that. Music's going to miss a lot now. I know Rush kind of retired years ago, but the ripples were very much still there. Yeah, that's me with Neil Peart. Very sad.
Gavin, how about you?
Well, I also kind of got into Rush through Kiss. My father is a drummer too, and one day I was about, 9 or 10, and he and I were talking about drums and stuff, and I at one point said, Peter Criss is the best drummer ever. And my father said, "Oh yeah, my dad's a Kiss fan too. He's how I got into Kiss." But he came home the next day with All the World's a Stage, and sat me down and put on that Working Man, Finding My Way, 15-minute track with the solo, Neil's solo in it, and my brain exploded. I had never heard drums sound like that before, and I immediately wanted to be able to do that, and I was already playing drums at that point, but yeah, I then, between the ages of like 11 and 20 something, a large part of my practicing was trying to tear apart Rush tunes, and I wasn't doing very well at them when I was 11, but you learn little bits, and then so in a lot of ways I kind of credit Neil for the way that I play today. He's a huge reason why I went into it professionally, and why I think the way that I do about orchestrating parts and stuff, and yeah, just phenomenal band. And had all the sorry, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. Had all the instructional DVDs, work in progress, and things like that. Yeah, he was a large part of my drumming upbringing.
And Julian, how about you? What's your history with Rush and just general thoughts?
You know what? It's rather funny to follow Jamie and Gavin, who both got into Rush via Kiss, in that I didn't. And I guess one would have thought that I would have been the most likely person to have kind of done that, being kind of a Kiss geek. But when I moved back to the States in 1991, I joined Columbia House. And for those 10 CDs I was getting for a penny, I had to choose the 10th one, and I couldn't figure out any titles from the available list that really interested me, and they had Rush, and I picked that. And, while I'd been aware of, a lot of the radio or the more accessible and populist material throughout the 80s when I was growing up, elsewhere and also in North America, it was only when I got that CD that they as a band fully grabbed me, and it immediately and had an instantaneous effect of having me purchase more of their catalog and finding out more of their history. I had no preconceptions about them as a prog band. That didn't mean anything to me. It was simply that I'd recognized their name bought an album, liked it tremendously, and to this day it is an album that resonates with me tremendously. And the lyrics, the music, the musicianship, everything that was kind of packaged together. And then when you see them and hear them in interviews just being so really nice and engaging and intelligent, just became a natural part of my life. You know, I often listen to Rush when I'm writing. And unfortunately, Neil's skills as a writer and his use of word have not transferred to me when listening to his wonderful, wonderful lyrics.
And Steve, how about you? What's your history with Rush? Just general thoughts?
So obviously, as a Canadian, Rush is a national treasure and much beloved. I started listening to them really young in the 90s. My dad had a copy of Roll the Bones that I listened to all the time. And they're one of those bands that I'll sort of go through phases where I'm pretty excited to listen to them, and other times I'm like, this progginess, I'm a little bit tired of it. But you know, I always have a lot of respect for them. I make fun of Neil Peart's lyricism sometimes, but honestly, like the whole idea of just writing songs and albums where you crib the plot from sci-fi novels, that's been a major part of my own songwriting, and I started doing it ironically in college and have kept doing it, and they're one way or another, they're one of my major influences. I don't necessarily follow his drumming all that much. Obviously I respect it. He's a great drummer, but I don't really pay attention to it consciously. But his lyrics helped elevate that band to the next level. His drumming helped elevate the band to the next level. It's a shame he had to go, but I am glad that I did get to see him.
Yeah, and I'll go next since I'm the last person to go. I first discovered Rush. I don't remember what show it was. I think it might have actually been a Poison concert, actually. Where my dad and I went to a Poison concert when I was in high school, and he bought a new CD. He's like, check this band out. And it was a Rush Greatest Hits CD that he bought. So he could own some Rush on CD because he had a couple of the records on vinyl, but then just hadn't bought any on CD and was inspired to buy it. And so he pops in the Greatest Hits CD, and it's basically love at first listen, where as soon as I listened to Rush, it was immediately, I understood this band, I loved this band. Of course, the first song I heard was Working Man, so Neil wasn't even on drums on that track, but I fell in love with the band immediately. I think that Neil, the entire band is incredibly talented, and there's a part of me that feels like sometimes Neil, got too much credit for the band when, Geddy and Alex were so talented. But I understand why he gets the credit he does because of what an amazing drummer he was and how he was able to play very technical, but it was always appropriate for the material. He wasn't overplaying in a way that he took away from the song. Everything he did made the songs better, and I think that's why it worked. And I think because he was also the lyricist for the band, he understood the big picture and how everything had to work together as a cohesive unit. And so he never did drumming that would trample on top of the lyrics because he wrote the lyrics. He understood the importance of a balanced composition. And so he pushed himself to extremes to make the arrangements more interesting and to challenge himself as a musician. But I think he understood the big picture with composition, and that's incredibly impressive. Time Stands Still, I think, is one of the greatest lyrical pieces in all of rock music. I think Rush as a band is able to break down a lot of musical barriers where people who love prog love the band and people who don't even like prog like the band. They have this mass appeal where my entire Facebook timeline of 4,000 people and almost every one of them was posting about, Neil's passing. And to see all these different musicians from all these different walks of life, some are, friends with record deals, and some are, punk guys slugging it out in clubs, and some are just, guys who are just big fans but aren't active musicians, and just like across the board, just so much love and respect for the legacy he left behind. And I think, he doesn't get enough credit as a lyricist. And I think that's why he's a very dynamic and engaging figure, because of what he offered, not just drumming, but in terms of lyrics, in terms of messages. The Rush catalog was often, the stories of, yes, sci-fi and fantasy novels, but also searching your soul and trying to understand the confusing path of life. And just left behind such a rich legacy that is, to be proud of. Rush is a top 10 band for me, and just, an all-around great musician. And to see this much love for an instrumentalist, because, we see like, singers, and people mourn the singers and the frontmen, but this was a man behind the drum kit who was this beloved. And I don't know if there is a drummer this universally beloved in all of music. Like, I love Ringo, and Ringo's maybe more famous, but I don't know if he is as beloved as a musician as Neil Peart. And, we all love our Kiss drummers, but in terms of, they're loved by the Kiss community, but like the general music populace might not be as aware of them. But this is someone who, across all the boundaries was just loved and respected. And it's a huge loss, because this is what many people consider to be the all-time greatest drummer. And, he is gone, and it's a huge, huge loss. Does anyone have any particular Rush memories they want to share, or favorite albums or anything like that?
I can certainly remember the first time I heard Spirit of the Radio. One of the reasons why, despite it essentially being Rush's pop song, one of the reasons that I think Spirit of the Radio deserves all of the love in the world is that the entire band sound elastic throughout the whole thing. And I think that is a true testament of the band. Like, they could be so incredibly complex and musically virtuistic, yet at the same time still wrap it into a pop song that, still plays on classic rock radio today. That first drum fill, it reminds me of The Who. It sounds like the whole band are about to fall apart, and yet somehow, at the last minute, they all snap back in. And that rocks as hard as anything else, in my opinion. I just want to give that some love.
Yeah, thank you. Gavin, do you have a particular, Rush song or album that's jumping to mind right now? I think Gavin is at a loss for words. Julian, any Rush song or album that's particularly jumping to you right now?
Yeah, and it goes back to what I said about the Columbia House deal. That album, of course, was Roll the Bones. And to this day, one of my favorite Rush songs, and the lyrics of it, is Ghost of a Chance. And it's just everything on that album, again. But this one song is, when I was doing a little list of songs that I loved by this band, it was like, this one's going up at the top to this day. And when I heard of his passing, it was the first one I hit on the playlist that I wanted to hear right then and there. And it's just so devastatingly sad that he's gone, but also not. He was a very private person, and no one knew about this until after the fact, of course. So he really lived his life his way with such a quiet dignity that, some of the softer music in the catalog will continue to speak on for him for eternity. So,
Steve, any particular Rush album or song speaking to you at the moment?
Not in particular. There's a bunch of songs that I like. I don't know, maybe we should do a Rush episode sometime where we rank some of their songs. What's the best greatest hits album by Rush?
Well, I don't want to get into
Chronicles.
We should rank the greatest hits album.
I don't know about that. I would want to do a proper album. And the thing is, I didn't want to do a ranking episode, because that felt like...
Are we ranking the members of Rush?
No, we're not ranking the members of Rush. But what is it? I didn't want to just rush and do a ranking episode, because that would be... yes, puns.
Oh.
But it would feel insincere to do that, and I think that's why I like this format of just sharing some memories and just being honest and truthful. Because we just rushed out Yes, pun. If we just rushed out a Rankin episode, it would feel like we're trying to capitalize on it. And I don't want to do that with this show. I just want to, take a couple minutes, acknowledge the great musician, give him some honor and respect for the impact he had in our lives. Gavin, did you think about an album or song in particular of Rush that is speaking to you at the moment?
Yeah, sorry, I had my mic was on mute by mistake, so I was talking earlier, and it just and it's hard to point to one particular song. It's just little moments throughout several songs, like Vital Signs, the song that closes out Moving Pictures. The outro, he does these drum fills in between the final line being repeated, and those fills are just there's one fill in particular where he just does straight 16th notes between the snare and the kick drum, pata 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 pata, and it's this really emotional moment for me, because here's this drummer with he's got the technical talent and the ability to, he could have done anything anywhere on his kit, but he was just in that particular moment just this simple kata 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 kata, just did it. And it that's always hit me as a really powerful moment in their career, and it's something that I really point to when, like, the common kind of dumb argument of, it's playing for playing's sake, and that kind of thing. I think Neil did have a tremendous amount of heart in his playing, and it's beautiful. Subdivisions is, I think, one of the perfect drumming songs ever. Witch Hunt, also from Moving Pictures. So many, what is it? Digital Man on Signals too, right? That opening, it's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a band with just a phenomenal catalog, and so if I'm asking myself the question, like, is there a song or album speaking to you? I love different albums for different reasons. So there's reasons why I love Counterparts and why I love, Moving Pictures or Signals, or, I think, Neil's not on the first album, but that first album's great. But I love this whole catalog. But as far as what's speaking to me right now, I would say as an album, Vapor Trails, just because I think that's sort of his most triumphant album, lyrically, in terms of his journey of life. Vapor Trails is a masterpiece in that respect. And yeah, the mastering's a little bit, wonky on the original version, whatever, it's still a masterpiece, shut up. But as a song, Time Stands Still is just, I think that might be my favorite Rush song. The lyrics just really speak to me. It's the Some Things Never Change of the Rush catalog. Some Things Never Change being from Frozen 2, of course. But lyrically, sort of that same message, but just beautiful, brilliant, kick-ass drumming on it too. And it's it's a ballad. It's a pop rock ballad, up tempo, with just like these really like kick-ass fills and energy, but it's still just very like sweet. Like it rocks, and it's like sweet and sincere. It's tender and kick-ass at the same time. So I mean, that song has spoken with me since I first heard it, but I think it's speaking to me even more now because the song is ultimately about appreciating the moments with your loved ones while you're able to, just savoring that moment, wishing it could last longer, but it can't. And, that is ultimately about the fragility of life, but there's still so much sincerity in just loving that moment. And I think that self-awareness is something I just resonate with greatly. And I think that song is just a masterpiece and just one of the best things ever accomplished by the human race.
The Pass is another one of my favorite Neil kind of tender lyrics. Just about this kind of it's I'm trying to remember what the song is about now, but it is a beautiful song. Just kind of about a high schooler misfit kind of guy, but it's very beautifully written, and the way that sorry, my brain fried.
Yeah, no, this is a difficult episode to do because, it's hard to wrap our thoughts around it, and we could just for hours just list off great Rush songs and great albums. I love that. Oh man, Analog Kid is so good, and oh man, Stick It Out is so awesome. There's such a great wealth of music, and that will live on. Rush is a great band. Neil was one of the all-time greats, if not the all-time greatest. That's a debate that people can have. You can debate whether or not he's the greatest drummer of all time, but you can't debate how great he was and what legacy he left. He left behind a huge legacy, and one just worthy of extreme respect.
And also, I feel one thing that doesn't get talked about with him as much as it probably should is around the time that they recorded Test for Echo, Neil completely, he was feeling kind of stale on the kit, and he was, feeling like he wasn't progressing. So
he took lessons.
Exactly, took lessons, completely changed the way that he played. He was playing in traditional grip for a little bit, and just from the bottom up reconstructed who he was as a drummer. And the fact that he, as someone who had already kind of dominated the drumming world, right? He could have, by the time they were doing Test for Echo, he could have just sat back and just been, pre-established Neil for the rest of time and still, deserve all the respect that he gets. But the fact that he had it in him to completely change as a player, and that he wasn't so mired down in his own lore, to say, oh, I'm already top in the game. Why would I change that? It works fine. Why fix it? But yeah, no, it's an amazing thing, and I think it takes a person, devoid of any sort of malicious ego to do something like that.
Yeah, that is so much humility to be what at that point he was already considered by many to be the greatest of all time. But now it's I have these weak points. I can be better. There are things I can learn. There are ways I can grow. There are ways I can be a better musician. So that way I definitely am the greatest of all time, and these chumps can't keep up. Ha ha! But, that is great that he never stopped that desire to grow and learn and become better. Because I know so many musicians who think they're hot shit, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I'm already good. I know everything I need to know. Why would I, as a guitar player, need to learn about backing vocals? There's this, a lot of people don't have the desire to grow and learn and become better, and he did. And I think that's just another testament to just this guy having so much character. And, I would highly recommend reading his book, Ghost Rider. Just a phenomenal book about him, overcoming his adversity with, the death of his wife and his daughter, and just a triumph of the human spirit. So I would say Neil is a very inspirational human, just all around. Even if he was just oh, I'm just a kick-ass drummer, that would have been enough. But it's hey, I'm a kick-ass drummer who's humble enough to want to learn and grow and look at my weak spots and become better. And his triumph of the human spirit, his lyric writing, his inner reflection, just he is an inspiration. And I think that's just super cool. And so I think that's a good stopping point for this episode, so we don't all cry and we can all talk about some dumb cock rock after this. Right after we do the plug segment, we're going to play the bit where I talked with Lee McCormick about Neil Peart, and that'll be the close of the episode. But let's go around the panel and tell everyone where we can find you on the internet. Jamie, where can people find you and your band?
My band, Be Quiet Shout Loud, can be found on Facebook. That's /Be Quiet Shout Loud. On Twitter, /BQSL. And on all good streaming services. If you want to check us out, that'd be great.
Gavin, where can people find you and your band Bent Knee on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Bent Knee Music, or go to bentkneemusic.com, or come and see us if we're in a city near you at any point soon. I don't know when this is coming out, and also I don't know when we're going to tour next.
I'm planning on putting this out as soon as I can get it together, so hopefully by tonight, if not tomorrow.
Okay, well,
Good
you know
see
what?
you in Tehran.
Yeah, and listen to your favorite Rush album tonight.
Oh, come on, there we go.
Look, the random number generator, I can't control it.
And Julian, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at aerosmithontour.com and KissFAQ.com, obviously. So that's one of my new projects. But I'd just like to mention one of the things that Rush had mentioned with Neil's passing, that those who want to express their condolences have been strongly suggested that they can do so by choosing a cancer research group or a charity of their choice and make a donation in Neil Peart's name.
And real quick shout out to our former drummer Nicholas Mora. Huge Rush fan. Neil Peart, is his god, his favorite drummer.
We tried to pronounce his name right just for you.
There is, one of our songs that we did on the second album, Chala Head Chala. Nick had left the band at that point, but the drumming on that song was, heavily influenced by the way he played it live with us. And he approached it, his thought process is like, how would Neil play the song? That's the way I'm going to play the song. And so most of our songs, you can't really recognize the Rush influence, but the drumming on that track still has like the elements of the Rushisms Nick brought to the band. And so I do really like that we have at least one track in our catalog that like continues that legacy in some small way. It just popped into my head. So, if you want to hear our, one track of our songs that has the slightest bit of Rush influence, that'd be the one to check out. But we're Lipstick Generation. Find us at lipstickgeneration.com. Obviously, as Julian said, if to honor Neil's legacy, if you want to support to a cancer research charity of your choice, please do that. And as Gavin suggested, crank out your favorite Rush songs. And it's I'm starting to ramble because I'm at a loss for words. So we're just going to transition to the Lee segment, and then that'll be the episode. See you later, folks. Bye.
Rock and roll!
All right, so, Rush, being from Toronto, Rush is a big part of my musical upbringing. They've been on, constant in the radio and in my life as a musician since the beginning, since the early days, right? And of course, Neil Peart, being such an influential drummer, and myself being a drummer, I really gravitated towards, Neil Peart when I was learning drums. And I think a great thing about Neil is that, his musicianship really helped young musicians think outside the box, kind of thing, right? So, Neil, to be honest, Neil Peart is not my favorite type of drumming. When I really decided to become a drummer, I kind of went towards more of a groove, Charlie Watts, Al Jackson, kind of Ringo Starr, kind of guys that lay it down, groove players, more than the big drummers and the guys that kind of go off on polyrhythms and different time signatures and, all these rudimentary things that are just incredible things. But,
learning all these parts for all these Rush songs was just amazing. As I grew up, just loving these songs so much and playing along to these songs on drums was just amazing. Neil Peart, what can you say? Just about his musicianship, just amazing. Always pushing the envelope. Just what he did with the drum kit was just amazing. And I take a lot of influence from the band more than him as a musician, but just such a great guy. And obviously being from Ontario, my home province, my home country was just amazing. So it's such a loss. And I kind of always had that hope that maybe there'd be another Rush gig, another a hometown show, one more show in Toronto. But unfortunately, I guess that's not going to be the way it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean the thing that strikes me with Neil Peart and
Peart.
Neil Peart.
Everybody says it wrong.
Yeah,
Canadians say it Peart.
Yeah, the Canadians say it right. Us Yankees say it wrong. But the thing that really stands out to me with him, and I'm sure when I edit this together, it won't be necessarily coherent, so this will be a separate section. But the amount of heart that the guy had, and like the adversity he overcame, and like coming out the other side like a stronger man and an optimistic man, and spreading love into the world. It's almost like, a Springsteen song or a Rocky movie, like the heartache that dude overcame, and then still like spreading, that positivity through his lyrics. And so, that alone is inspirational. But when you factor in just how talented he was as a drummer, and I'm like you. I tend to prefer drummers with a little bit more swing and not as precise. But I think he still played with a lot of heart, as precise as he was. And I think that's why everybody loves him across the spectrum.
Like, there's this clip that's been going around this weekend. Like, everybody's been sharing all these, Neil Peart clips and these Rush tributes and stuff like that, which has been amazing to see, the outpouring of love for him as a musician from everybody. And but there's this one clip of him playing where he did this Buddy Rich tribute in the mid '90s, and there's this clip of him playing Cottontail, and I can't stand it. I think it's awful. I think he swings like a Mack truck, right? But like he's playing like traditional grip, which looks awful. Like his grip is terrible, and he's got like clear heads on the drums, and he's trying to play jazz, and like you don't do that. And I don't know, it's just a horrible clip. But after that show, he started working with this guy. What's his name? Jim Gruber or something like that. This guy. And he went back and he started taking lessons with this guy, reevaluating his grip, and learning things. And he kind of, 20 years into his career as a musician, he's relearning his craft, and he's trying to become a better drummer. And I think he achieved that. And in some of the last few tours he did, like in the Millennium years here, he's really improved as a drummer. So he kind of, took that as a something to work on in the mid '90s when he saw some deficiencies in his playing. I think with that swing gig he did,
And I think that's so impressive, the ability to grow and learn, and then now that there's certain things that he as a player was not good at. So like there are so many people who view him as like the greatest of all time, but there were so many things he couldn't do and he was willing to learn. And so in the same way that like a great blues player might not be able to shred, and a shred guitarist might not be able to play something with like power and emotion, like he recognized his deficiencies and then went out there and learned because he just strove to be better. And I think that is so cool. It shows like a well-rounded, balanced approach to music. And I think the best musicians like look at the big picture, look at their weaknesses and try to work on them. And so I think that's just a testament to just, what a great musician that guy was all around.
Exactly. Like definitely not my favorite drummer, but no denying an incredible drummer. What a great musician.
Yeah, I think, once again, it speaks volumes to the diversity of people who respect him. Like, no matter what your taste musically, at bare minimum, you would respect Neil Peart. If not, like him and find something to appreciate. And I think that's just a testament to what that guy brought to the table.
Those drum parts, too, man. Like, you can recognize the song just by listening to the drum part, right? Like, all those fills on Tom Sawyer, like, the solo section of La Via Strangiato, like the little time signature changes and Free Will, like all that stuff is just incredible. And when I was learning drums and studying drums at Humber College, like in the percussion department, like there's all these guys love Neil Peart, right? And everybody would kind of bust out their Neil Peart licks when they sat down on the drum kit, right? So it's amazing. And the influence he had on musicians and drummers is just it's unbelievable.
Agreed.
Legend. He's a legend, yeah.
Do you have any final comments you want to add about Neil Peart before we sign off?
No, that's it, man. Thanks for letting me say a few words on Neil Peart and the band Rush. I love Rush, man. Great songs, and a big part of my musical history. So.
Yeah, I mean, a top 10 band for me. When I heard the news, I just had a Rush CD in my car anyway. Like, they're just a band that's just always in my rotation. Sometimes I listen to them a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, but like, they're still always a band that's like in my consciousness. I'm always aware of, and so when that happened, it's just like it's a bummer, but I'm blessed that I've seen them the number of times I have, and I think the guy left behind a really great legacy.
Absolutely, still got the music.
And Lee, where can people find your podcast online?
Tramps Like Us, a Bruce Springsteen podcast. The website is trampslikeUspod.com. There's a Facebook group page, and it's on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and all that stuff too. Thanks a lot.